Hello everyone, I'm Sylvia from Fairlight Tarot. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to do the tag 7 decks for 7 chakras, which is a VR to Chrissy Bentley. I will make sure to link her original video in the description box below. However, the first time I've seen that video was on Annette's channel, so Annette from Project Refine Life. So I'll make sure to put a link to her video too. Working with chakras, for me, has a very distinct feel of doing something to improve yourself, of putting myself out there and at the same time in touch with my own essence, with my own energies and vibes, but also a way to connect with what is not self, what is outer self. It's one of my favorite practice when I do yoga and meditation. It's a way to look at my own body, my own centers of energy in my body. When I saw this tag, I thought it would have been so much fun because subconsciously I'm actually doing exactly the same thing with some of my decks. But let's have a look. So the first prompt is obviously the root chakra, a deck that connects you to your physical body, sense of stability and belonging. And I didn't even have to think too much about it because I subconsciously, as I said, so not intentionally, but I actually used the Inkwitch Tarot deck by Eric Mal exactly the same way in which I try and connect to the root chakra. Let's have a look why. This deck is, to me, very powerful, even though it's following the tradition of the RWS when it comes to the meaning of the cards. It does have its own interpretation, and it's a modern take on the RWS. When I look at the, for example, we can see it immediately in the Ace of Cups. It's obviously a cup of coffee, or cappuccino, rather. And again on the Two of Cups. This deck is one of those decks that puts you in touch with your own physicality, with the essence of your own body, in the sense that it does not transcend the matter. And it's a good thing because even if our ultimate goal would be to transcend matter and to connect to a spiritual kind of essence, we cannot do that until we're actually comfortable in our own skin. And in order to be comfortable with our own skin, we need to be at peace with everything that is flourishing, nourishing, but also perishing. And so, for example, I really like this Five of Pentacles because it does show the kind of sense of decay, that is very, very strong. Whenever you see this image of rotting fruit, you can almost smell the rot. And it's something that is very strong, has a very strong meaning for that card. But in other cards as well, you would definitely see the same kind of powerful energy that brings you back to a very visual kind of image. I believe that this is probably the main reason why I, until today, subconsciously, really not intentionally, but I was using this deck for that very same purpose. So connecting myself to my physical body, the sense of stability that we need to have. Think about, the mountain pose, for example, in yoga. If you're a yoga practitioner, you will know that that's something that is so powerfully grounding you to the ground, yes, of course, to the earth, to Mother Earth, but also to yourself. So you need to be comfortable in your own sense of balance in order to do pretty much anything in yoga. But that's a metaphor for anything else in life, isn't it? We need to be grounded, we need to be safe and balanced. So this deck is very good at doing that, and I really appreciate the fact that thanks to this VR, I actually understand today now why I not intentionally choose this deck whenever I'm in need of doing that kind of reconnection to my root chakra. And I think that's, one of the main reasons why on YouTube and in the tarot community, for example, we pick up a VR. I think it's exactly that. It's the way in which we realize something more about our decks or our practice of reading tarot that we would not have been able to realize had we not seen, for example, someone else talking about a specific deck in a certain specific way. So this is the Ink Witch Tarot. And the second prompt is the Sacral Chakra, a deck that puts you in touch with your own emotions and creativity. And I had to go with the Lumina Tarot by Inner Hue. Now, just a note, I'm sorry about noises in the background. There's a lot of restoration works going on. I have been trying to pick a time of the day in which they were not working, but we are going towards the darker months, and obviously there is less and less light during the day, so it gets dark earlier. And if I had to wait for a moment in which we do not hear any sound coming from renovation works, we will have to be after 6 p.m, which is when it gets dark. So I had to choose between the two. I'll try my best in the editing to just make the sound as clean as possible. But going back to the tarot, so this tarot deck is, to me, the kind of deck that really puts me in touch with my emotions. And also, as a consequence, because the creative process for me in particular it's a very emotional process. So basically, when I express my creativity is when I'm, for example, writing my books, or not just the books, the fiction books that I'm writing, but I'm also writing a couple of books on using specific tarot decks in specific spreads to overcome some of the most powerful human emotions. So if you're familiar with my channel, if you're familiar with the Tarot in the Times of series, you will see, I don't know when, I'll be posting a link to my newly minted website where you'll be able to see the spreads. Going back to the creative process, this is a very emotional moment for me. It is probably very similar to giving birth to something. I don't have children, so I cannot possibly know what that's like. It is all about you know, that sense of sacrality that is being born. It is something, it's a new life that takes shape. And the creative process for me is exactly that. When I forge something, when I give the breath of life to something that has been still and lifeless so far, it's a very powerful, very powerful experience. It doesn't matter whether you've been doing that for 10-15 years or your entire lifetime. It's always very emotional, and it puts me in touch with the raw power that I have within myself, that I actually have to tap into in order to be able to create something that is worth being created. And this deck seems to be doing this for me. It seems to be able to put me in touch with exactly that type of energy that I need. So this is the Lumina Tarot. The third prompt is the Solar Plexus Chakra, a deck that helps you follow your passion, purpose, and power. This deck is amazing for that. It's Diamanti Oracle by Jennifer Sudini, and she's the same author of the Modern Nirvana Oracle. I really like the guidebook. This deck is very specific, is very particular in the sense that you won't feel like using it for divination or for many other, you know, in many other ways in which you would normally use an oracle deck. I do still use it paired it up with tarot decks to give me a second introspection into the reading that comes out of the tarot cards. But what I really do and appreciate about this deck is that each and every card starts with the eye. So it is a commitment. Whenever is, you know, whenever you look at this deck, you may feel ambivalent about it in the sense that it may feel as if it's giving you advice to do something. So I regard all altars with respect. For example, I honor virtue. So in a way, it's telling you what you are doing. So I am doing this, I am speaking with good intent. But on the other hand, it's also giving you an advice on what to do. So I should speak with good intent. I not only give offerings that are genuine, but I should give offerings that are genuine. So I really like this idea. It's the idea that what we do, when we do something that we should be doing, we become what we actually should become. So it's an actualization of a purpose. It's giving us a purpose, and that by advising us and encouraging us to pursue that, it's making us become what we are. Hope it makes sense. It's something that it probably is a lot more intuitive than it sounds. But when you start using this deck, I can assure you that this is a very natural process that you feel like you're really called to do. So in this case, for example, I create harmony. It's a constant, continuous advice in the sense that we need to live in harmony. Harmony needs to be a constant in our lives. It's not just a snapshot in time in which we have created something harmonious, but we need to be constantly repeating that gesture. And, you know, I act respectfully of others. I do good. So it will become clear whenever you start using this deck. I really like the fact that, you know, many of these decks have their own references to chakras. So, for example, even in the Inner You, not the tarot, the Lumina Tarot, but Inner Hue's Oracle, which is called Connected and Free, for example, there's actual chakra cards. Many of these figures, for example, have the chakras in them. And it's because there is such a strong bond between tarot as a self-practice, as a self-introspection, and the work you usually do with chakras. So this is the Amenti Oracle. And the fourth prompt, of course, is the Heart Chakra, a deck that provides insight on how you can give and receive love. Now, I think that this is probably quite an obvious choice. However, I have watched a couple of videos picking up this tag, and I was worried of others using the same tarot, but I have to say I haven't seen anyone doing that, and so I'm quite happy to do it myself. Now, this is the Art of Love Tarot by Denise Jarvie, and the artwork by Tony Carmine Salerno. Now, however, I think that this tarot is actually called the Tarot of Light in later editions. So it's a tarot that I used to use all the time whenever customers were asking for a relationship reading, because I do believe that there is a very conducive kind of element of love, in the sense that that flow of going forward and coming back and bringing everything with it. It's like the flow of a river. That's the way in which I visualize, for example, a balanced relationship, balanced loving relationship. It's got well, the images are lovely. I don't know if you're familiar with Tony Carmine Salerno's work. I really like it. There's a lot of I think it's mostly oracle decks, however, but with his artwork, not many tarot. As a matter of fact, the only one I can think of is this one. What happens is that because he's so famous, let's say, in the spiritual world, many of his paintings will be found in many cards. So what happens is that in some cases, if you have more than one or two decks with his artwork, you will be familiarizing yourself quite quickly with his images, and in some cases you might find the same image in two different decks with two different for example meanings, or associated with different keywords. But as I said, it's not a big deal for me. I really am a fan of his artwork. I really like it, and I just, you know, when I see something like this, for example, there is so much detail in the composition that I really actually, I feel very passionate about this type of art. Now, this deck is very useful when we talk about love matters. It just has that kind of energy. It just is that kind of deck. And but it's also because it's a very peaceful deck to me. It's a deck that it's one of those decks that can bring up some issues whenever I use it for relationship readings, but it brings it up in a manner that is actually encouraging reconciliation. And that's what I appreciate the most. One other reason that I do appreciate in this deck is the fact that the suits are renamed. So for example, that really helps. Even some of the majors are renamed as well, not obviously the Lovers, but for example, I think the Tower is called the Eagle, which is a very specific way to read the Tower in a relationship reading. Now, the Shadow is the Devil, for example. Now, for me, the important thing about renaming some decks, it's actually a funny thing. When I find that a deck has been renamed and it doesn't click, it doesn't make sense, it actually makes me a bit annoyed. Whenever I'm reading for a client, and I use this deck 99% of the time when doing readings for clients, not necessarily for myself, I actually prefer that the names are not immediately recognizable. I actually do prefer that death is called the Release, with a keyword such as metamorphosis, because it doesn't scare people away. So imagine you're talking, it's a couple that comes to you and they have a couple of issues to iron out, and I'm reading with this deck. The fact that there needs to be a transformation comes out with the word the release and metamorphosis, which is a very positive word as opposed to death. That the concept of death in the major arcana is a very positive concept for me, even though really strong. And it always depends on, you know, the preceding cards, the following cards, the positional spread, and whether it's upright or reversed. There's so many things to know about how to read a card, but nonetheless, the general feeling, if you don't know tarot and you look at the card and it says death, when your question is, will my relationship survive? I can assure you people freak out. Okay, and you can explain a million times, but there's always at the bottom of their heart there will be that kind of, I don't know, there's sort of a sense of defeat that I really don't want in a relationship reading. And so I really appreciate that there is this kind of renaming going on, not just in the major arcanas, but also in the minor suits. So yeah, this is an excellent tarot deck for readings for relationship, and it's the Tarot of Light. And the next prompt is the Throat Chakra, a deck that helps you receive and present information more clearly. Now, I think it's a kind of an inner joke that I went with the Spirit Speak Tarot. This is the bridge size with a white background. There's also a version that is reversed, so you will have black backgrounds with white artwork. This deck is, to me, such a really strong deck. It's a small one, but don't let appearances deceive you. These are the backs, by the way, really gorgeous. I really like them. Yes, it's a small deck, but it is so incredibly powerful because, true to the word Spirit Speak, it actually presents you with a lot of prompts for articulation of messages. There is this expression that needs to come out, really does need to come out in many of the cards. And sometimes it's a message that is blurted out, sometimes it's a message that is shouted out, sometimes it's a message that is just whispered or alluded to. But it is something that it's definitely speaking to you, and it's also conducive of a very good conversation. So it's like, I don't know, sweeping all the objects on top of a table aside and just, you know, clearing the area, so to speak, and let the flow of the conversation go. It is a deck for that. The real estate, as you can tell, is very small. As I said, it's a bridge size deck, and I guess that for this reason and probably by design, it is a rather pippish deck. However, that is also one of the reasons why it does facilitate dialogue. because of this, minimalist style. It actually prompts you to speak up, to cover the emptiness. I always like to think that Latin sentence, horror vacui, so nature tends to fill in every empty space, and human beings do the same. I remember coaching in my times when I was coaching for corporate employees, and I was telling them how to negotiate. The best way to negotiate something is to have very clear communication, communicate in a very simple manner in such a way that there are absolutely no possibilities for misunderstandings. You wouldn't believe how obvious that sounds, and yet again people do not communicate that way. They just don't. Honestly, I think it's because in some cases we assume that the others will understand anyway what we're saying, or I don't know what's going on there, but the rule of thumb is that you always need to communicate in such a way that you yourself will understand what's being communicated to you had you been on the receiving end of the message. It is very simple. So this deck is doing just that. It's communicates something in a very simple manner, and it's asking you to fill the void. So like nature, and it's a very kind of fun experience. It's a very powerful thing to do. I really enjoy using this deck all the time. So this is the Spirit Speak Tarot. And the next prompt is the Third Eye Chakra, a deck that brings you in touch with your intuition and inner knowing. I had to go with the Carnival at the End of the World Tarot. So this deck to me is one of the most powerful intuitive decks that I own in my collection. I have quite a fair bit. I actually really enjoy a very nice intuitive deck. Not necessarily because I don't like an explanatory deck, or I don't like a traditional symbolic RWS deck, simply because I think that it's something that is very stimulating to have an intuitive one, and it's actually very hard to create a deck that is intuitive and at the same time it gives you the right kind of intuition. So obviously you can create something completely obscure and encourage people to find their own meaning in the images, something completely abstract, and have people talk about what they feel whenever they look at those images, kind of in a sort of a Rorschach kind of experiment, the test in which you see those images that all look to me like butterflies, really. I strongly believe that is one of the ways you can do it, but probably the most effective way is to create some kind of images that are not necessarily symbolic, but they are very intuitive. And this deck I think it's perfect to achieve just that. So look at this card, for example. This is the Eight of Wands, and obviously it looks like one of those English postbox, right? And that's the news coming quickly to you. Obviously, you need to know the symbology in order to be able to read with this deck, but you also need to let yourself go. And that's something that I really associate with the Third Eye Chakra. The Third Eye Chakra works at its best, at least in my case, at least for me, when I let myself, after I actually am comfortable with my own knowledge of an argument or a topic, I let myself actually wander, self-connect with the inner aspect, the hidden sometimes aspects of this theme. I think every time that I look at this deck, I find the infinite possibilities that it's offering me, and I'm very grateful for that. There's so many cards that really strike a chord in my heart. It is a whimsical deck. I understand that it's not for everyone, absolutely. And if this deck is not for you, I'm sure that there's other decks that have the same kind of powerful intuition going on. But I really, really like to use this one. So this is the Carnival at the End of the World Tarot. And the last prompt is the Crown Chakra, a deck that helps you connect to Source, the Divine, or whatever you think as of the energy that is bigger than us. I had to confess that I had a bit of trouble in choosing a deck that connects me to the divine, simply because my personal history with a divinity is a very troubled one. In a way, I was born in Italy. If you're born in Italy, if you know, chances are you will be born in a Catholic family. But for me, the divinity in the Catholic religion is not something I connect with or something I bonded with in a long time. As a matter of fact, in my personal development, I've been studying different religions because I always wanted to find something I could connect with, and I just couldn't. And I was kind of miserable for a while. Seeking solace is typical of human beings. It's very strong necessity that we have. We need to feel that everything is going to be okay. And religion will give you just that. It will give you the idea that there's this higher power, there is this something or someone that is bigger than us and that is guiding us. And that is a wonderful concept. And it's a very strongly appealing one for me. Having been born in a Catholic country, of course, that's the way in which I identify the divinity with. So that power, that source, that will protect me. However, for many reasons, after traveling so extensively, after studying the human mind, and having so many experiences in different settings with different cultures and confronting myself with different cultures, I've come to realize that any kind of divinity in any other kind of religion is seen in the same exact way. And so I realized that the most important thing for a human being is not necessarily to choose which religion to believe in, but it's and it's not even related to a religion in specific. The most important thing is creating this meaningful bond with a part of the universe, whether it's in ourselves or it's outside of ourselves, but that is going to guide us. It could be a light, and it could be science in many cases, or it could be religion, it could be spirituality, it could be meditation, it could be anything that works for you. And I know that it's not that easy to find. In my case, it's still an ongoing process. I don't think I have yet found something that symbolizes that for me, and hence my trouble in choosing a deck for this chakra, because to me the crown chakra had to be related to a divinity that I feel comfortable with, which I still haven't found yet. I have been throughout my life devoted to Buddhism, for example, and I was really studying Tara, the figure of Tara, the incarnation of Tara, and in many aspects, Tara is still very important to me, but it's not what I now identify with the source. I'm still in search. Every one of us has the duty and the right to find something that makes them feel comfortable with this concept. And so at the end of the day, my choice is the Spacious Tarot, because the Spacious Tarot is the epitome of the absence of that. I don't know if it makes sense, but if we have a look at this deck has natural elements, it has animals, it has plants, it has ether, air, it has the 4 elements, it has symbology, and it has nature, for example, it has scenery and landscape, but it's such a balanced deck, it's such a neutral deck. When it comes to anything that is related to the astral realm, the as above, that to me, it's the symbol of what's still in the making. Like myself, I'm still in the making. I'm still searching for something. I am still looking out for something. And this deck is makes me feel very safe whenever I am searching for that something. And it's a deck that still keeps me company even in the absence of that something that one day will make me feel comfortable. I don't know if, I hope it makes sense. If it doesn't, please don't mind me. I know that we're all different. I know that some of us are lucky enough that we have found what we were looking for. We have found all the answers that to the questions that we have. I'm still not there yet, and it's probably because of a lot of stuff that I had to process, a lot of stuff that I had to go through, and it's absolutely fine. I don't feel like I'm in any kind of rush, and I'm taking my time. And this deck is the deck that I use whenever I feel that sense of I'm still looking, because it's still with me. It's a deck that doesn't look up, it doesn't look down, it's just literally by my side. And I really appreciate it for that. So this is the Spacious Tarot. And of course, if you know me, you'll know that I always have one last deck. So the White Sage Tarot is in this deck because this deck, I've talked about this deck before, it is absolutely incredible how related to chakras this deck is. So just to show you, of course, everything is upside down. It's published by US Games. It comes with a very handy little white book. It's a mini deck. It's a tarot in a tin. What I really like is that the cards, even in the guidebook, are associated with a very specific chakra. For example, the Hangman is associated with the first chakra, Muladhara, base of spine, red light. So we've got a location in the body, and we've got a color associated to the first chakra. Now the color you'll see is to be seen in the cards themselves. So you see, for example, the yellow here and here, the blue here, again the yellow, of course, the orange, and so on, and so the pink, and so on and so forth. And I don't know whether you do have your own association with colors and chakras, or you follow the one that is most popular. In this case, you know, you can always have a look at the kind of cards that you find at the bottom. So you've got the color association, the name, the numbers, and the names of the chakras, the location of the chakra on the body. So we've seen the chakra number 1, Muladhara, base of spine, red light, root down, earth element, be grounded and take up your space, mantra, Lam, and so on and so forth. This is incredibly useful. If you do practice yoga, you will be very familiar with all this information. If you don't, this is extremely helpful for you. Even if you don't use the deck, I reckon this deck is still worth it. It's such a reasonable price anyway, and it's still worth it because of this card. Now the chakra energy rainbow spread, for example, it gives you an idea on how to use this deck in such a way that it will be conducive for you to use it related to the chakras. So you've got a 7 position in which, you know, it tells you what to look for. For example, your higher self, connection to source, your intuitive nature, higher levels of expression and communication, and so on and so forth. So it tells you that reading the cards in correlation with the chakras provide a spectrum of information. Notice which energy centers may be blocked and which may be supported. I really like the way in which they suggest to use it. Teresa Hatch is one of my favorite creators. I have, well, she's also the creator of the Land Sky Oracle, which is also very much centered into the practice of yoga. And there's a new one coming up, and I can't wait to, I think it's called the Nature Quest. I could be wrong. It's not available in Australia yet. As always, we have to wait months before we actually get to see something, especially when it's published by US Games. But that's okay. I'm still enjoying this one very much. One other reasons why I really love this deck is because it is a mini size. Therefore, for example, when you do a complex spread with more than 3, 4 or 5 cards, you can use this one without requiring the whole table. It's a peepish deck. It's minimalist, but it's very intuitive, as you can see, and it's very kind. I really love the fact that it's using animals and otters, you know, and it's a very, very nice feeling when I'm using this deck in my practice. Whether I use it for a quick reading, in that case, I would definitely associate it with the traditional RWS meanings, or if I use it following the chakra energy rainbow spread. In any case, it's always a really rewarding experience. So this is the White Sage Tarot, and it's an honorable mention to this VR, which is 7 decks for 7 chakras. It's a VR to Chrissy Bentley. Now, thank you so much for staying with me until the end of this video. If you like, please consider subscribing. It really helps a lot, and have a great day.